Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, broadcast from a secret, undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Tonight, we have a lot to cover. We have a guest host, our normal compatriot, Mr. Nick Razzo, has been otherwise detained, not by immigration, but my good friend George Rodriguez from San Antonio, Texas, has been gracious enough to join us, and we welcome him to the show tonight. We're going to have a good discussion about some of the topics. If you're on the broadcast, we have the chat open, so feel free to comment and give us some feedback as we go along. In the meantime, there's a lot going on in the state, but we're not going to cover too much from the state tonight because we have our guest host, plus we have a lot of national news to cover. So we begin tonight with coverage about the Guthrie kidnapping case in Arizona. And unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know a lot about what's going on with that. It's a really strange situation in certain ways, and all we can do is kind of just wait and see what develops. George, what are your thoughts on what's going on with that?
Well, from the very beginning, that it was the mother of a very high powered, a high noticed person, somebody that is a host on NBC. I mean, it seems both very strange and very, very ambitious for a kidnapper to do. I mean, a kidnapper will always try to do something low key, but with great a great amount of money that they can get. In this case, I'm not sure. I mean, kidnappings, as it has been discussed, very difficult nowadays for a criminal to get away with it because we've got so many cameras everywhere. It's all very, very suspicious, and I'm hoping that it's not true, but I have a suspicion that it might be an inside job, maybe even a family member.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talk about that on the different shows. I've been following it on different shows and getting just kind of different viewpoints about what's going on. But when they came out with that Ring camera video, that was really interesting. And then I heard about how they had to, well, I don't know all the intricacies of what the FBI was able to do, but apparently the Ring camera was not on a subscription plan, so therefore there was no access to anybody that was in the home.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that Google runs that system, and so like everything else, anything that's digital is earmarked somewhere. It doesn't just disappear into the netherworld. And so the FBI, after several days, uncovered this video that shows this guy walking up to the front door, fumbling around, looking, and then just realizing there's a camera recording him and doing some strange things with regards to what he was going to plan on. And so what they're saying is this is the kidnapper, but he was trying to disable that camera, and now they've in addition to that, they've uncovered down the road about a mile away some black gloves that resemble the gloves that he was wearing in that video. And so now they're not saying that those are the gloves of his, but if they are, it's the gloves have been sent to Quantico for analysis, and they can pull fingerprints, DNA, all kinds of things off of those gloves. So if it happens to be the kidnapper's gloves, then they're either incredibly stupid or somebody even put out a theory that it might have been Nancy Guthrie herself that threw the gloves out the window of the vehicle she was being hauled off in.
Right.
Now, I don't know about that, because if you're taking someone hostage, you're going to secure their hands, right?
Right.
So,
at least I would think.
I mean, common sense would tell you that you would secure the subject into your vehicle, both hands and feet, because you're not going to want them jumping out of the vehicle. So it's just a weird thing. But let's look at this new evidence here. We've got a video that just came out today, and it gives us an update about what they're looking at right now.
Joining me now is international private investigator Jay Armis III and forensic psychologist Dr. John De La Torre. Thank you both for being with us here today. Jay, I feel there is conflicting messages, or at least I am conflicted in reading the messages coming from local law enforcement and the FBI. On one hand, there is this sense that they are zeroing in. There's forward deployment of HRT, of SWAT. There is some sense that they have leads that might be pointing them in some very limited directions. On the other hand, they're canvassing video from a month and a half long period, suggesting that the investigation is still wide open.
So the fact that they've mobilized their HRT team, which is the team that would affect the arrest of the perpetrator, tells me that they are starting to narrow in the scope of their investigation, and they want the team in place so that the team can be dispatched and react on a moment's notice.
But why then would you need to go back and look for neighbor video over a month and a half long period from the beginning of January to the date of the crime?
Because the investigation is still an active investigation, and they're looking for any clues. I said from the very beginning that I believe that this individual conducted some sort of surveillance prior to the date of the crime, which means typically they'll do a drive-through of the neighborhood, several days before, several weeks before. They'll go there multiple times, frequently trying to find the best way and the quickest way to get in and the quickest way to get out.
I'm still, Doctor, I will bring you into the conversation. On one hand, law enforcement is guarding information fairly closely to the vest. They're not sharing things with the public. That's become...
Well, duh. They're not going to give... You think the guy is not watching? Come on. What's that?
He may not be watching.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they're turning to the public for help for more information. Again, putting us in this position of, are you zeroing in? Is that why you're withholding information? You don't want to compromise the investigation? Or are you at a place where you're really asking, hey, we don't have it here. We need you, the public.
Well, yeah, I think it's about narrowing it down. I think there's so much chaos. There's so much noise being brought into this investigation, whether or not ransom notes are real, whether or not people detained are actually involved in the crime or just somehow ancillary involved. I think they're trying to focus, they're trying to tune out all the noise and try to figure out where exactly is the next step in this investigation. Where's the next piece that needs to be laid down in order to finalize and get Nancy Guthrie back?
Now, one of the things that's interesting to me is that, and I didn't realize this until I read it, but the local authorities are the ones that are running the investigation right now. And you would think that by this time it would have been turned over to the FBI.
Yes.
To be the lead on the case. But this, I don't know if it's already happened, but somebody said that it was time for the FBI to become the lead source of the investigation, and local officials would subject themselves to the FBI. So I mean, I've always understood that kidnapping is a federal crime, or is it only when they go across state lines? What do you think?
No, I think it is a federal crime. However, one of the things I heard this morning was that there is a problem with the sheriff who is in charge of the investigation from the very beginning. He is not a very good manager, a very good person who coordinates with others. There was some criticism as to his ability to work with other agencies, and he seemed to be not very well liked by his own people.
Huh.
So that might be another issue that's coming up in this problem.
He wants to earn his brownie points, so to speak.
Yes.
He wants to be the hero of the. Well, that's kind of disturbing. if that's the case. Let's listen a little bit more to this, and then I want to tune into the other part that they talk about this new ransom note that they received.
In some ways, I feel like they are asking for the noise, asking for tips, soliciting 4,000 different calls to come in, which would suggest if you don't have some leads, you need someone to provide you those leads. Instead of zeroing in, they're opening up the investigation. But I'm not the investigator. You guys are both the experts on this. Stay with me for just a moment, guys, because we have brand new video that we want to share with you. There is new video TMZ says is on the FBI's radar in this case. It's being widely discussed online. It was captured at 1:52 in the morning at a home 5 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. You see a man in the video both wearing a backpack and holding a backpack. One of them has reflective stripes similar to the one worn by the man in the Nest camera video. The man appears to try and open a gate at a residence and is unable to do so. He leaves at 1:53. As a reminder, we have been told by law enforcement that software detected someone on camera at 2:12 a.m. So there would be 19 minutes in between this moment and that moment. And we want to be clear here. The person in this video is not a suspect or subject in any way at this time, but the video is out there and it's getting a lot of attention, so we wanted to address it, and it is being considered by the FBI. All right.
Now that's something new. I hadn't seen that one before.
Me either.
But he seems like he's either familiar with the property or he's trying to gain access, but he's not wearing a mask or anything. So I would think that they could identify this guy pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Let's turn back now to Jay Armis. So I'm trying to add together the timeline. This is 5 miles away from Nancy's residence at 1:50, what did we say, 1:53? Mm-hmm. So 1:52 a.m. And we need to put that into the timeline of when we see the video from Nancy's Nest camera footage, which I believe we just stated was at 2:12. Previously, there had been some discussion about 1:47 a.m.
The person in the video that was just shown, he may have been just a random burglar going and doing what they do at 2 o'clock in the morning, going from place to place, trying to see if they can break into cars, break into homes. The person that perpetrated this crime was definitely in a vehicle because he had to be able to remove Miss Guthrie from the.
If he's a burglar, he's a really stupid burglar.
Really.
He doesn't realize that there's cameras everywhere.
From the location in a vehicle.
Let's go back to Dr. De La Torre. Let's talk about video for just one moment. As I understand it, people have on their front door often a Ring branded camera. In this case, it was a Nest branded camera, which is operated by Google. They can or cannot hook that up to a server, a cloud service. Many of us have that. I'm sure many people watching do. And when you do have that connected to the cloud service, you have the capability of going back and reviewing footage from several days, maybe even weeks in the past. That doesn't seem to be the case here. It seems to be the case that if you do not connect it to the cloud footage, everything is recorded on the local device. So if the perp takes the camera device off of the door, and we've seen the empty holder, he now has basically absolved himself from anything that happens on video afterward, and it's hard to recover what happened before because it's on the device. Now, this is what Google and the FBI were able to do. They were able to go get this video, even though it was supposedly only on the local device, and give us the images that we have. My question for you is, why is that all? If they're capable of getting that, can't they go back further in time and see when was Nancy dropped off at her home? Who walked her, if anyone did, to the door?
Yeah, you would think that they would be able to do it. And I think one of the bigger concerns is there a search warrant in place to get some of that stuff? I mean, when you see something like this, you see that it's shady. But the other elements of who dropped her off, those kinds of things, while they are important, just to kind of fill out the information, it's really not necessary for the public to see those kinds of things. It's really only for the investigators. This is just what they've released. This isn't everything that they've said they have in terms of.
Yeah, I would hope they're smart enough to not release everything they have. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my thinking. I mean, if there's a camera on the door, there's got to be cameras in other places. I know that they pulled one off of the roof of that garage building that they're investigating, and they've looked at. They're looking at trying to uncover videos. I'm sure there's a lot more video that they're not showing. They just showed this one in particular because it looks kind of interesting to see a guy walk up to the front door and kind of fumble around. And they were saying if this guy wasn't prepared to confront a ring type camera, then what does he have in that backpack? I mean, if I was planning something like this, I would have tape. I would have all kinds of things, and be very easy to just pull out a roll of tape and tape it right over the camera and block out any more video. But instead, look what he's doing. He's pulling brush, and then he's trying to put the brush in front of the camera.
Available evidence to them.
That's very fair. That's very fair. This is what they have chosen to share with the public, which we will say is very little at this time. At the same time, asking the public for help, which is a difficult position to put the public in, quite honestly. If you're looking for help, but limiting the amount of information for the public to be able to help you, you are inherently limiting, are you not, Jay? The public's ability to help you.
Well, I mean, this is the phase of the investigation where they're reaching out to the public to try and provide information to fill in the gaps. They've already gone to the process of obtaining forensics, and they've probably exhausted the tips that they had developed on their own. So now they're reaching out to the public to see if anyone knows. This looks like my coworker. This looks like my brother-in-law. This looks like my landscaper.
Something I want to ask you both. I'm sorry, Jay. Mm-hmm. There's been this tendency to describe this suspect as, I've even seen some suggestion that he could be slow or lazy and that he's an amateur. At some point, and Dr. De La Torre, I'll go to you first. This has been pulled off for 12 days. At some point, we're dealing with one of two options. We're either dealing with the option that this is not an amateur, that this is somebody who did very well in getting away with what is a very high-profile crime for 12 days, or we're dealing with some very massive, embarrassing mistakes by law enforcement. Dr. De La Torre.
I mean, I won't count out the second thing, but here's the first thing. There's certainly possible when I see this video that I see someone who is putting in, they're more relaxed, they're more confident, right? Nothing about this is sort of, overwhelming. It's not distressing to them. They're there to fulfill a mission. They're there to do a thing that they've been convinced themselves to do, which is important for them to do. So there's not a lot of hesitation. Right? The steps, the gates and stuff like that could just be an awkward step. But what I'm seeing is someone who is ready to go to do this thing.
Whatever this thing may be.
Okay. Well, here's the deal. Here's what I want to know. How did he get up there? Did he walk up to this house? I don't think so. There's got to be a vehicle somewhere. Because if he's going to take her, or that's his plan, then
he's not going to carry her on his back.
She won't fit in the backpack.
You all right?
Okay, well, that's the latest so far. But I think
we're going to see ultimately that this is both a combination of somebody that blundered in their crime, but I think that it's going to be very, very sad that we will also find that law enforcement has dropped the ball on several points. Yep. And that sheriff is going to really catch some hell.
Yeah. Well, here's this new development that they're putting out. I want to zoom or, go into this particular update that has to do with the new email to TMZ.
Of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Investigators, following the release of that FBI surveillance video, may believe there is more images out there. They're asking people within a 2-mile radius to kind of keep an eye out for that. Also send in some of their own surveillance video from the month of January about anything that is out of the ordinary. And TMZ, Fox News talking about this, a piece of video as public assistance is needed. Former FBI supervisor, special agent tells Fox News Digital that the person seen in the video with backpacks near Nancy Guthrie's home the night she vanished should not be called a suspect or person of interest, saying, quote, they are simply someone identified through the TMZ.
Okay, we already saw that part.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And their FBI surveillance video of that individual outside the home of Nancy Guthrie obviously got a lot of people's attention. They're now asking for more, and including this one. What do you make of it?
Well, it's important to look at the timeline that the authorities had released just a week.
This guy just said outside Nancy. That's not outside Nancy Guthrie's home. That was they just said in the other report that it was 5 miles away. So this guy's incorrect on that.
To look at these videos, TMZ now obtaining this new Ring doorbell footage that the FBI is investigating. It's on our website. You can clearly see in this video that this person has a backpack on, which raised a lot of alarm bells because this was only 5 miles away from Nancy's home in Tucson. And in this new footage, this is early morning on February 1st. This is around 1:53 a.m. So just technically, 20 minutes or so before on that timeline that it was revealed that the software had disconnected for that Nest camera that was on Nancy Guthrie's door. Now, in this footage, the new footage that the FBI is investigating, we see a man wearing this backpack. He goes up to a gate. He can't gain access to the gate, and then he leaves. This gives him, 18 minutes or so to then drive to Nancy Guthrie's home, put on this new disguise, and then approach the door. That's a theory that is being run around right now, and that's obviously why the FBI is really lasering in on this video, because this is very, similar circumstances to not really look at this and go, this could be connected.
Yeah, that is so very true. And obviously just the connection, the timeline, all of these things similar. And they're not calling this individual a person of interest or a suspect, just that they want to talk with him, similar to the way they talked to that Carlos individual.
So what they're saying is that this might be the same guy that's on the other video.
And they don't know if they call him suspect yet.
Yeah, well, I guess if you look at it closely, he kind of moves like the guy that's at the front door. If you look at him, he's just kind of like moseying along, and he tries to open the gate. And I mean, whose house it was that? That's what I want to know. And why did those people have any concern about, the suspect? That's weird. And let's move ahead here a little bit and see what they're talking about on the...
So in one of her videos, saying the exact same thing, report it to authorities as soon as possible, because she does believe that Nancy is alive, and she is really hoping, obviously, to bring her home healthy and safe. In terms of the investigation, it's important to note as well that they are tracking some of the items from the video of that man walking up to the door. And there's 3 items specifically that they're looking at, which includes the glove, the backpack, and the gun holster. They've already identified the backpack to being a Walmart Ozark backpack specifically, and this kind of gave them many different
Darn those Walmart shoppers.
paths here to identify different parts of this person, which they could eventually lead them to finding when these items were purchased, if they are new items, if they were purchased from a store nearby in Tucson, because they do believe this person is Tucson based. Now, looking at all this footage right now, there's a lot more questions than answers, obviously, but we can only hope that they're getting to the bottom of this very soon.
Yeah, they want to find some of these answers, anything in particular that might keen their interest to lead them to the next lead that leads them clue to hopefully finding Nancy Guthrie. I also want to ask you, because we were hearing reports yesterday, TMZ received another note saying someone had information that was leading to the kidnapper. They're saying they needed a Bitcoin, and then more developments in terms of this, ominous developments on this. TMZ, a post saying they have received another email from a person who claims to know the identity of Nancy Guthrie's kidnappers. The words are chilling, saying in there that this is to, quote, not be taken, that they haven't been taken seriously. What more can you tell us about this correspondence? Another note.
Yeah, I had heard about the alleged, or not alleged, but the message they received at TMZ, which they turned over to the FBI, where somebody's claiming to know who the kidnapper is, and in exchange for 1 Bitcoin, they will reveal it to them. So, you don't know if that's a hoax, or it could be, somebody really stupid, because
I would imagine, even, particularly if they are stupid, I would imagine that some of that if they feel that they're not being taken serious, they might do anything.
Yeah, well, again, there was one report that I had heard about, a message that came from California that they traced, that supposedly, well, they didn't know who it came from, but they did know it came from California, if I'm not mistaken, where they said that they had received a note and wanted to communicate with authorities. My understanding is the FBI has a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest. So my question is this: a Bitcoin right now is about 65 grand. So if there's a legitimate reward, and this is a legitimate citizen, and they have information, why not just go in and give the information to the FBI and collect the reward if it, pans out to be something tangible? That would be my thought. So,
well,
it sounds like
and again, in these kind of situations, you end up with a lot of people who want attention.
Yep.
And who will scream fire in a theater, so to speak, who say that they know something or that they know somebody, just for the attention that they want. That would also include the kidnappers. The kidnappers, in many cases, are folks who are desperate for attention in some form or fashion. Not to mention, that they want some money. But these situations, that's why what makes it so complicated is because, whenever you try to think logically, in some cases that's not the best way to think about these people.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of things are going to break loose in the next few days. I got a feeling that they're getting closer. But our main prayer is for, Nancy to be okay. I'm sure she's, under great duress. She has been without her medication, and, an 84-year-old lady that seems to be in fairly good shape, but I'm sure this is pretty stressful.
That's the thing, whether or not, her medical condition is the number one thing that everybody, that her family is worried about.
Yep. So, we want to, continue praying for her and the family, and let's hope that it ends up in a good resolution. So, all right. So we want to switch over to something going on nationally, and that is the SAVE Act that just passed the House. And there's a lot of confusion about what the SAVE Act is. So I pulled it up here, and what it basically says is this bill requires individuals to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in the federal elections. Specifically, this bill prohibits states from accepting and processing an application to register to vote in a federal election unless the applicant presents documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. The bill specifies what documents are considered acceptable proof of U.S. citizenship, such as identification that complies with the Real ID Act of 2005 that indicates U.S. citizenship. And further, the bill prohibits states from registering an individual to vote in a federal election unless at the time the individual applies to register to vote, the individual provides documentary proof of U.S. citizenship and requires states to establish an alternative process under which an application may submit and other evidence to demonstrate U.S. citizenship. So each state must take alternative steps on an ongoing basis to ensure that only U.S. citizens are registered to vote, which shall include establishing a program to identify individuals who are not U.S. citizens using information to apply. Now, okay, so it's not what the Democrats are saying, Chuck Schumer running around, Jim Crow 2.0, the guy's an idiot. Okay, I mean, I don't know any other way to describe the guy, but it basically the bill establishes criminal penalties for certain offenses. But here's my personal take. Okay, literally every other country on the planet, including third world countries, have what is known as a national ID card, which certifies them as a citizen of that country. Okay. I have my Peruvian card right here. All right. And basically, when you vote in elections in those countries, you produce your national photo ID, which certifies you as a citizen of that country. So here in the big bad USA, are you telling me that we can't devise a system where every citizen goes and applies and takes out, similar to a passport, a national citizenship ID card, photo ID card? Why is that so difficult?
Well, first of all, the issue is one of states' rights. That's the biggest argument. That according to the Constitution, the states are the ones that are supposed to take care of all of the requirements and issues related to voting and to election.
Hold on just a minute, though. That only applies. The states' rights only applies to state elections, does not apply to federal.
That's the other argument. That's very, very true. That that there should be a difference between state and local elections, and the state being able to control and do whatever they want with those state and local elections. And the SAVE Act has to do with federal elections. However, there are those purists. I'm not one of those. But one of those purists that say state rights is more important than federal rights or federal elections. To me, a federal election has the equal importance of a state or local election. That we have seen repeatedly. One of the best examples is the recent election in 2020 in Georgia.
Yep.
Where several 100,000 ineligible voters cast ballots. And the Georgia election was swung by barely 2,000 or 3,000 in favor of the Democrats.
Yep, 11,000 votes is what the count was in Georgia. And my understanding from the reports that have come out is that approximately 330,000 ballots could be deemed invalid.
Exactly.
So,
in that case, I mean, the state of Georgia controlled the requirements for voter registration for elections.
Yeah.
And in that case, which is a classical case, it affected a federal election.
Yeah. But the other thing, too, is that regardless of the state elections, the fraud of having either ineligible voters voting and or as something that we know to be called stuffing the ballot box.
Right.
There's video evidence that they were pulling out boxes after they shut down the system, and I guess somebody forgot to turn off the cameras because the videos clearly show them pulling ballots out from under tables, big tubs with tens of thousands of ballots that they then proceeded to start counting after the alleged stoppage had happened. So, and of course, the perpetrators, the Georgia people, the ones that perpetrated the fraud, are saying, "Oh, this is just federal interference in state election."
Right.
No, this was a presidential election, and the feds have every right to make sure that the voting was valid in every single state for the federal election part of it. And just so happens that the state elections are also caught up in it because you don't know what else was unheard of. But there was another report that showed about ballots that they looked at that only had the presidential race marked off. In other words, the voter only voted for president and I think maybe a couple of federal offices, and everything else was blank. So tell me how many voters actually do that. I'm sure there are some that do that, but not to that extent.
Exactly.
So that's very suspicious.
It what we've got is a situation where there is, in my opinion, a very, very real effort, a real conspiracy to manipulate elections.
Yep.
And it's very, very evident that the Democrats don't want anyone to mess with it because they've got it's reaching the point where they have it's reached a science for them on how they can steal an election, how they can influence an election, how they can manipulate an election. And here in Texas, we have there's been an effort to clean the voter rolls, and they have found at least 200,000 voters that were dead or moved, and therefore, they shouldn't have voted. On the other hand, you've got a situation here in Bexar County in San Antonio where there have been repeated efforts to clean the voter rolls, and they refuse. Why? Because the biggest opposition is coming from the Castro twins, Julian and Joaquin, who are about as far to the left as you can get. They're AOC in Mexican form. And they are really, really big opponents of trying to legitimize elections, how to make elections fairer and transparent. You've got to ask yourself why. What is the big problem with that?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is basically that you have a systematic approach by the Democrats that want illegals to vote, and they have to protect that because I think they know in the heart of hearts that if illegals weren't voting, that they wouldn't win as many races as they currently do.
Correct.
So that they're protecting their golden goose, as I call it, and they don't want that to go away. But the bottom line is there still could be without affecting states' rights in local elections, which in my opinion there's some discrepancies there, but a national photo voter ID would give you the clearance as a voter who is a U.S. citizen to
Right.
vote. And that, I mean, it would cover both federal and local elections, because if they claim that they want to follow the law, then that means number one is that you have to ensure that people who are voting are citizens, period. And despite some of these local municipalities that are passing rules and laws that allow, non-citizens to vote, that's a different debate. But the bottom line is that you would cover pretty much the whole spectrum by making sure that citizens were voting. And if there are local places where they pass a law or a rule that allows non-citizens to vote on, say, local elections like a mayor or city council, I guess that's a different topic. But the primary goal here should be that in federal elections, president, senators, U.S. representatives, those should all be voted on by citizens only, period. And the Democrats don't want that, and they scream and moan and cry and kick because I think they're cheating. And that's the only conclusion you can come to. So,
these situations that that we've got where there is complete and total opposition to verify citizenship in some form or fashion. The only thing that you can think of is it's coming from people who don't care about America, who don't care about our system, who don't care about our country. Because how could you not want only citizens to vote? How could you not want that? How could you not want that citizens be the only ones that get health care, that citizens are the only ones that get public housing, that citizens are the only ones that have the privilege to drive or vote? It's amazing how you have these people who are opponents to it.
Well, I get pretty radical in my description. I think these people are Marxists at heart.
Yes.
They are. There is a direct correlation between these anarchists that are trying to cause chaos wherever they go, and all of this is perpetrated by globalists who are funneling money in to get to basically disrupt the American way of life. And it's beyond me how good faith Americans in certain circles don't see that. It's just it's willful ignorance, in my opinion. But
it really is. This whole thing of globalists, it's really, really difficult for people to wrap their minds around what we're talking about until you hear someone like Schumer or somebody like AOC preach. Well, Mandami
Jeffries,
Hakeem Jeffries, who claim that it is a human right. That's what they always talk about. That it is a human right to come to the United States. Yeah. And once they're in the United States, it is a constitutional right for them to receive benefits and privileges. Well, there you go. You go from one to the other, and this whole thing that it's a human right. And then once they're in here, then it's a constitutional right. Let's do this. Let's stop it at the human right. That people do not have the right to come into the United States, period.
No, it's a privilege. It is a privilege to come here and become a citizen. And we have a right, just like any other country, to decide who gets to come in and who doesn't.
Say no.
Exactly. Look at what's going on in Europe, and that'll give you a good semblance of what's coming here, which is what they want to do. These groups are definitely Marxist and anarchist, and they're being funded. I'm glad to see a little bit about the Justice Department going after people like Soros and his finances. And I wish they would just freeze his assets and stop his ability. And any of the other billionaires that are out there funding this stuff, they should be.
Yeah,
they
if
should
you're,
be.
if you're funding violence, how is that different from the mafia?
Yeah, well, it's definitely organized crime, and but it's a grander scale because they're trying to destroy a nation from within, and people
It's
just
sedition.
don't want to. They don't want to hear that. You're just
It's sedition.
Yep. So anyway, the House passed it. Let's.
And we're happy. In the
see
Senate, it's going to be very, very interesting because you've got a couple of senators, Republicans.
And I've got a couple clips on that. Let's listen.
On Capitol Hill, Republicans continue to make election integrity a top legislative priority, bringing the Save America Act to a vote Wednesday on Capitol Hill.
A high-stakes debate on the House floor Wednesday over election integrity.
To secure our elections and ensure that it is easy to vote, but hard to cheat.
The Save America Act would require Americans to provide proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections and to present a government-issued photo ID when casting a ballot. Republicans backing the bill say the changes are necessary to restore public confidence in elections and to ensure that only U.S. citizens participate.
But I want to stop just a second. This is where I say that a national voter ID or just a national ID card proving that you're a citizen would, prevent a lot of this red tape that they want to go through. It's a simple process. How many people get passports? And if you apply for a passport, what are they doing? They're vetting you. They're making sure you're a citizen.
Exactly.
They're doing all of that.
Yeah.
And it would be simple to just issue everyone that national ID card that would be their proof of citizenship. And unless you were a citizen, you wouldn't be able to get that card.
Participate in the voting process, noting public polling consistently shows broad, overwhelming support for voter ID laws. Democrats standing staunchly opposed.
What we are debating is whether we are going to believe the BS conspiracy theories cooked up by Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans about whether or not elections can be trusted in this country.
Warning the proposal could create new barriers for millions of Americans, that requiring proof of citizenship, such as a passport or birth certificate, could pose challenges for individuals who do not readily have those documents available.
Who asked for more red tape? Did Jim Crow call? I mean, that's what this bill is about. It's not about voter ID. It's about voter registration, and it's about voter suppression.
They also say strict voter ID requirements may disproportionately affect elderly voters,
suppression of your illegal voters.
Communities.
Yeah, right.
The reality is that Americans use photo IDs every day to carry out basic tasks like opening a bank account, boarding a flight, checking into a hotel, renting a car.
The bill faces an uphill battle in the Senate, where Democrats are threatening to use the filibuster to block the legislation. Some Republicans have floated eliminating the filibuster's 60-vote threshold to move the bill forward. But Senate Majority Leader John Thune made it very clear on Tuesday Republicans do not have nearly enough support to take that step. On Capitol Hill.
Yeah. And
this situation with their argument that there's not enough voter fraud to merit this kind of legislation. My response to that, and I have had this discussion with local liberal TV hosts on Telemundo and on Univision, is, well, then please tell me how much voter fraud is tolerable, how much is okay. Yeah. How much voter fraud can we wink at? On the other hand, when you're telling me that how much crime is also allowable, how many abortions, baby killings are we okay with? Give us the threshold to that, and then also give me the threshold for how much money we're going to spend maximum on education, on health care. You tell me that too. And they they obviously, they get angry with that. Well, that's different. No, it's not. If you're going to tolerate a little bit of voter fraud, you eventually are going to tolerate a lot.
Yeah, I would like to see one of them with children answer what would happen if a pedophile attacked one of their children. Would they measure that by how much the guy molested their child, or would they have a limit to that? Or the other one, there's this joke that I heard years ago, and it goes like this. This police officer is monitoring an intersection, and this guy kind of glides through the stop sign. He pulls him over. He goes over and asks him for license and registration. And he asks him, well, why are you stopping at me? He says, well, you ran that stop sign back there. He says, well, I slowed down. And the cop proceeds to grab him by the shirt and starts beating on him. And he says, now, do you want me to slow down or stop? So,
good point.
I mean, this is the kind of nonsense that leftists put out that, it's like they have no common sense. I think they do, but they're just incapable of using it.
No, it isn't. It is logic based on self-centeredness, self-serving. That's all it is. It's logic based on self-serving and self centeredness.
And it's ideological.
If it was just about logic of life, then they wouldn't, they'd recognize that, whenever you commit a crime, it's a crime. Yep. And it must be punished. Same thing with voter fraud. If you commit voter fraud, it's voter fraud, and you need to prevent it. But they don't seem to think that logically.
But it's ideological. If a Democrat comes up with an idea, they're all for it. But if a Republican were to come up with that same idea, they would find a way to oppose it.
Well, especially in the Trump time, in the time of Trump now, with Trump deranged syndrome, especially with that.
I got news for them. It's not going to end anytime soon, because as soon as President Trump is out of office, they're looking at probably 8 to 12 more years of Republican presidents.
I sure hope so.
And they're not going to change. They may be different than President Trump in certain ways, but they're on board with the agenda of conservatism and making sure that the country's secure and that we have, a good economy and making sure that we control who comes in and who doesn't. All the things that, go way back even to Democrat presidents. I mean, I've been watching all these videos come out about Obama and Clinton and talking about immigration and saying the exact same things that President Trump is saying today, they were saying back then, but nobody squawked anything about what they were doing. So it's just hypocritical. All right, so here's John Thune talking about the
Republicans and conservatives who say we need to change something. Are you just going to allow a vote that fails, or are you committed to Republicans and conservatives who say we need to change something here, we need to maybe alter the filibuster to pass that? Where are you in those talks right now?
We're having a very robust conversation among our Senate Republican colleagues about the path forward. I think most are supporters of, I certainly am, of the SAVE Act and what it attempts to accomplish. We have a similar law in my state of South Dakota that requires a showing of an ID in order to vote, and that's something that I think ought to be applied across the country. You ought to be able to prove that you're a citizen of this country in order to be able to vote. How we get to that vote remains to be seen.
It seems like a real challenge, though. I mean, especially when you have people saying you got to change the filibuster, something that you're not willing to do at this stage.
Well, it's not just me not being willing to do it. There aren't anywhere close to the votes, not even close.
So that's where we are with the.
Well, I think
the Senate
isn't he talking about voting on the closure of the debate not necessarily votes on the SAVE Act.
Yes, that part. What he just said is there's not enough votes to kill the filibuster.
Right.
So,
and from my perspective, I, to a certain degree, agree with him that we got to be careful. That Republicans have got to be careful when they change rules in the Senate and in the House, particularly in the Senate, because that could come back to bite us if Democrats take over again, like they were when Biden got elected. We've got to be careful. But at the same time, there's got to be a way to move these very important legislative actions forward. There's got to be a way to do that.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about that. I mean, but still, they got to be able to get this through for the president, because if they don't, they're going to pay in the midterms, and we've got to ensure that doesn't happen, because if it does, then everything President Trump has accomplished thus far will be down the tubes.
It's going to go away. It'll be destroyed.
Yep. So, all right. So I wanted to touch base on your issue down there in San Antonio before we close out. We're up about 4 minutes. So tell us a little bit about what the ICE facility situation is down there.
Well, just like you've got the situations across the country with ICE being attacked by sanctuary communities, by communities that are dominated by Democrats. We have the same thing here in San Antonio. San Antonio is dominated by the Castro regime or political machine, Julian and Joaquin Castro, who are Democrat socialists. What we've had here in San Antonio recently is that ICE is going to purchase a large building, a large warehouse that they are going to turn into a holding facility for illegal aliens that they pick up and that will be then transported to the airport for deportation. Let me also add that 4 years ago, the Biden administration established a welcome center for illegal immigrants crossing the border in Eagle Pass and Del Rio, which was one of the centers of people coming in. They were brought in, they would bust to San Antonio, to the center, and then from here they were literally loaded onto planes and then sent all over the place. For anyone interested, you can go to El Conservador YouTube, and there are several interviews that I did there, including several with Venezuelans that were going to Denver. So that's what was happening then. However, now that you've got ICE putting together, building, or not building, but renting this property, the mayor and several members of the city council are trying to figure out how to prevent it. They have said that they want to go to the senators, the U.S. senators and the U.S. Congress, the Texas delegation, as they put it, and demand that ICE not use that property in San Antonio. Well, I got news for you. The Texas delegation is mostly Republican, and the two senators are Republicans. So I'm not sure how far they're going to get on that. Yeah. The only thing that they are doing at this point is raising Cain, is creating problems, creating situations where they are alarming people, they are scaring people, they are playing theater, political theater. So we've got this big facility that is going to be purchased. It's going to be developed by ICE, and it's going to be utilized to hold illegal aliens prior to them being boarded on planes and deported. And people that are on there that are going to be involved in this are folks that have been arrested and accused of committing crimes in America, as well as folks who are just determined to, avoid deportation and have been caught.
All right. Well, we're up against the clock. We'll post that video up on our YouTube for folks that want to learn a little more detail on that.
You got it, buddy.
Connect with you if they want to. So thanks for coming on tonight, and we'll see you down the line. We've got a lot going on statewide and nationwide, so I'm sure there'll be
lots to talk about.
Yeah. All right. Have a good night, George.
Have a good one, my friend.
Bye-bye. Take care. All right, that was George Rodriguez, our friend from San Antonio. We're up on the clock, so thank you for tuning in tonight. Remember to smash that like and subscribe button, and please consider donating to the podcast so that we can reach more people.